My full name is Anukam Edward Opara. The title that you see in front of you is a work in progress. It's not connected to Robert Venturi's Complexity and Contradiction. If anybody's read that in architecture, it's pretty amazing. No, it's really in regards to my fight with who I am and what I do as a designer in general. In the fact, I don't know what I am, but I try to create people's identities for them, if you could say that as a graphic designer. As Michael has pointed out, I'm Nigerian and British, but I also have lived in the United States for 16 years, and I think that this is my flag. Seriously. It's a very important thing to hold on to as a person, that sense of identity. And this is sort of my creation for my identity. Another identity is the work that I sort of achieve. I think people know what this stamp is. It's the penny black, the actually one of the most expensive stamps in the world. And I had sort of the privilege to work on a project that kind of is connected to this type of stamp in more ways than one, apart from it's being turned around. This is Queen Victoria, and the idea that the name is Penny Black, and being a queen, it sort of connoted this particular cover that created for this book for Oprah Winfrey. Or more so, Miss Winfrey actually created this book for me. I sat in a room at Abrams, who's one of my clients, and they stated, we've got this project for you, Eddie, and it's all about Miss Winfrey's show. I'm like, oh, great, And the thing is, she's picked the paper, she's picked the format, and I'm like, what the fuck, what do I have to do here, And I was really worried. In a sense, she had actually organized everything around me, and she's never met me and my team. And one of the things that was, in a sense, a saving grace, even though Miss Winfrey really liked the interior design, I never really show it, was the idea of the cover. We'd had a photo editor go to Chicago for many weeks in search of this particular prize, of finding the cover for this book. And what happened was, he'd come back with photographs of her, in silhouette, and all you see is like this, or this, and we were like, oh, this is not working. And then one day he came up with this, and we were blown away. It just reminded me of a queen on a stamp, and I think it's very, very fitting. It's another sort of strange thing that I also designed this magazine for a client of ours, Studio Museum in Harlem. And if you've ever gone to Studio Museum, or if you ever go, it's very fascinating. It doesn't really sort of look or resonate like a museum, you think. Its focus is on African American and African influenced artists around the world. And I always call it the little museum that can. It's beautiful, and they every 3 months, 3 to 4 months, they create this magazine for free, and it's about this thick, and anybody in this room can go out and get it. Well, go on email them, and they'll send it to you around the world. And this cover was incredibly fitting. President Obama had just been elected president, and they just wanted to say, forget the aspects of painting and sculpture. This is art. This is art. This is a sense of identity. It's a sense of self-worth, reflection, responsibility. And in a sense, he's also, it shows a sense of a person that's looking forward, but with a sense of a lot of complexity. It's not simple being that particular man, and I really do hope he gets elected again to try a little harder, please. Crikey. Anyway. Two influences in my life are my mum and a man called Lebus Woods. My mum, is amazing. She always told me to, clean my room like, every mum does, and I never really could do it. And I always try to think like, oh, come on, why can't I do it? And I realized in the end that it's because I'm never supposed to finish anything. As a designer, you really don't. And you're not supposed to. It's version upon version upon version upon version upon version upon version, and I love that. And so, Mum, I was right. I'm not gonna clean my room anymore. Lebus Woods is rest his soul, is a experimental theorist architect. Who had these mind-blowing drawings. And as a teenager, I became a member of the Architects Associates in London. I wanted to be an architect. I think a lot of us did and failed. I stumbled upon him when I was 15, 16 years old. And he's totally changed the way I think about work. But going back to my mum for a second, this is not my mum, by the way, or either one of them. I don't think I could do that as a person. As a child, I used to sit on her corner of her bed, and I would watch her get dressed to go out and party. And she was always going alone because my father was working in Nigeria. He worked in Nigeria from the age of, when I was 5 to the age of 19. And I really grew up with my mother. And I would pick out her dresses, and I also pick out her jewelry. But one thing that always impressed me was her wrapper and her headscarf. And these headscarves were blinding. Absolutely stunning things to see. I mean, you've seen them. The intricacy and the complexities of how dynamic they are, how they twist, how they sort of extend out into the air, and it sort of takes up your peripheral vision. You're like, hi, Mum. How's it going? You're trying to see behind her. You say, it's going good. So this was a great influence in my work. And then there was Lebus Woods' work, and this is one of his sketches. And I think this is one of his ideas of called a parasite. The idea that if it's a war-torn building or like a scar, it creates a scab, and this is the scab that is sort of generated from it. And I always thought, that's never going to fly, mate. That's just not the way it's going to be. But graphically, it was so arresting. I was like, how can I put type on that? And it's like, every time I'd look at his work, and I'd say that. And so, a few years back, I was doing a lot of work for commercial clients, and I was getting a little sick and tired of the same old. And I really wanted to sort of produce something that meant a lot to me as a person, and try to understand who I was as being black, and being English in a foreign country. And the Studio Museum had these summer parties, and I wanted to make a sort of present for them. And so I generated 2,000 pieces of work, and of this particular piece, sorry. And it's sort of focused on a couple of things. The aspects of complexity actually is that it's incredibly rich and dense. It's not supposed to be simple. And this piece is incredibly dense. It has a quote from Ralph Ellison. And if anybody's read Invisible Man, it's an amazing book. The sense of self and of place, of being in a society as a black man in America, and being, in a sense, invisible, but also incredibly supposedly volatile, is quite something. And I wanted to sort of pull that out of the book and place it on this project. And the quote is, "I am invisible, understand simply because people refuse to see me." And that sort of really stuck with me. And as you can see, it's sort of intertwined into this optical structure. And what we did is we basically I'm interested in the aspects of folding and creating things that are very dimensional. And so my team and I started developing this particular piece. It didn't take too long, a few weeks. And it's also focused its attention on the idea that it should work like a stealth bomber. The aspect of the stealth bomber being that it's incredibly ugly, but also invisible. But ugly as in beautiful as well, because it's all about functionality. And so that's what we did. We folded it, and we created a sort of paper-esque stealth bomber. And the sort of way that it's layered and flows was quite interesting. It was supposed to be a poster that originates as being flat, but then the idea of creating these folds, they're all hand done, was really provocative to us. And so we also started to line the walls of our studio with it, to sort of create another sense of structure and dynamic. And so this is part of the wall itself. And I'm really interested in the aspects of wallpaper. But this time I was like, this wallpaper has to be dimensional. And so when people came into the studio space, I'd show them before I sent it to Studio Museum. They would be like, "Holy shit! Like, what am I reading here? What is that?" They were going back and forth, trying to actually figure out what this actually meant. And to me, it meant the sense of identity, but it was like cloaked in this dimensional sort of structure. And so I was always trying to figure out, like, how can I actually use it for another client? Studio loved it, by the way. It was a present for them. They gave it out. They loved it. They lapped it up. But in a sense, I wanted a client to actually come to me and get me to do another piece like this. And luckily enough, I had a lot of clients that in real estate, and there's a beautiful park in New York called Morningside Park, and a developer was building this enormous, luxury condominium, and she is African American. She went to Harvard and hired us to create this particular piece. And she had seen stealth, and I kind of wanted that to be part of it, but I didn't know how and or what would happen. And so what we did is that we, as you can see, this particular cover, it is the park itself, and it basically unfolds into this large map of New York City on the other side, which I'm not going to really show. But what we did is we sort of developed another sort of dimensional piece in her sales space that sort of, instead of doing like a graphical wall that you always see, which is bled from one side to another, this was like a sort of situation, as it were, of paper. One funny thing that happened here was that they roped it off and they thought it was artwork. They wanted to put a little plaque next to it. And she wasn't there. She didn't realize that it was. They didn't realize that it was the design company, my design company, that actually created this piece. And they called and they say, who created this artwork? We've roped it off and we want to put a little plaque next to it. And I was like, that's bollocks. Don't do that. Please don't do that. This is a design piece. It's supposed to be open. Don't sell it for money. It's not supposed to be there for that type of thing. It's there to just stand out and gaze attention, and also to allow people to pick up your brochure so they could actually read it, and you can actually make some money from that, because these are hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of apartments that you want to sell. And so this is the another sort of view of the pieces that we created. Die by committee. This is definitely connected to my work and everybody else's work. And has anybody been in a situation where, I think a lot of people are, where you have a ton of, you go into a room and you think that you're going to meet with 2 people, right? And there's 70 people, and it's like, the whole board is here, They have to decide upon how we're going to commence this particular project and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, bugger, I'm totally done on this one. This is a die-by-committee job. And you just can feel it in your bones, because they're not going to be able to make a decision. And I've got a ton of projects that are like this. And I thought to myself, what one should I show? And I wanted it to be something that was kind of contradictory. There was a client right next to the MoMA called Museum Towers. And this building, as you can see on my right-hand side, is 44 floors, and it's 2 wings, so it's like 88 floors. And a client of mine, Francois de Menil, of the Menil family of Houston, asked me, he's an architect, and asked me to develop different wallpapers or sort of like wall installations that would actually work within this particular space, that was connected potentially to the museum next door, but it was in competition to a Jean Nouvel building that was being built in the neighborhood. And I said, yes, absolutely. And they wanted me to come up with a methodology of how to tie 88 wallpapers together as one within, I don't know, a matter of months. And so I went to my trusty friend, computational design, to do it. In my team of 5, there are 3 of us are also, you could say, software developers and graphic designers, and we sort of have a really rich mix of things. And so we came up with this plan to develop these wallpaper pieces for these corridors, and also we had to do the signage as well. And everything was going swimmingly. We explained the whole process to them. They thought it was fascinating. They wanted to know how it was connected to the museum. We basically said, pointillism, it's made of dots. Oh, they sold that. I was like, yeah, that's great. That was fantastic. Yeah, that went through swimmingly. They really loved this sweeping structure that we had done. But and they also really liked the idea that they were all wallpapers that were randomly created, that from one floor to the next, to the next, to the next. And the thing about the dots is quite interesting, because it was, these wallpapers had to be digitally created. And of course, they are made of dots, but the pieces are dots, very fine circles that are 30 feet, this wall is 30 feet long and 8 feet high. And, it's a hard thing to sort of develop these particular pieces at such a high resolution. And so we had to recode the programs that we were utilizing to actually do this. And we found out that to develop one of these pieces of wallpaper, it would take us half a day. And so, because if you really saw it, you could actually see the circle, and it creates this amazing sort of grayscale structure. But we prevailed, and we sort of generated a sort of like a test floor, and we thought it was sort of great. This is going to be great. And the interesting thing about the wallpaper is that it's not cut at all. It's not cut into bits and then stuck together. It's one whole sheet and 30 feet long each and every time. And we were incredibly lucky to do this. And so this was a test floor that was generated for it. And we also did the numbers. And they started to fight. Seriously really get annoyed with one another. And we were like, oh, this isn't pretty. This is a die by committee situation, Eddie. What occurred was that they thought that this was tout genre nouvelle. I'm like, what the wait a minute, this is what you kind of told us to do. And it was like, well, no, it's not the wallpaper, it's the color of the walls, the painted walls, the gray. So we with Francois' help, we went through so many different colors. We repainted the corridors. We showed it to them again. They started fighting even more, and then they scrapped the whole project. Yes. So, we had generated, I think actually about 200 wallpapers. And we came to the point of view that at one point they wanted to own all of them. And so I basically have 200 wallpapers. Is anybody wants to buy one? You see me at the end. Because I really do believe in reuse. Yeah. And talking about reuse, I really do believe in it. The whole aspect that a client can come to you, they're really excited, you're really excited, and then they sort of blow you off with a little bit of a puff is quite something. And I'm not here to bash clients. I think they're amazing. I need them. It's just that when you sort of develop a whole idea, you think you're going to see it through. And another sort of by committee situation was a piece I did for Tiffany's, and which I will show you now. And it was sort of created about 3 years ago, but then we sort of brought it back for this Fashion Week in New York City a few weeks back for the FDA, the Council of Fashion Designers of America. This is a wall, actually, the graphics developed by Michael Barut over here in the corridors. And one of the things that I wanted to sort of utilize was this particular project from Tiffany's, where it was like a jewel-like animation that we were utilizing. And I basically sort of pulled it out of, blew it off, all the cobwebs off it, and reinstituted it into this particular project. The thing about this particular project is that the client wanted 600 to 800 different images to revolve over the course of the party that was going to occur. And like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to just fade in, fade out, fade in, fade out. Oh crap, So this came into, it came into life, and it was really sort of an important factor for us to sort of achieve. And it brings back the aspects of the stealth idea, the shifting, the dynamics, the shifting of the image, the juxtaposition of the typography, and it worked out incredibly well. And these are some of the shots that I've gotten. This is a video. This is a quick video of how it actually worked. So we would actually create this sort of like diamond structure that would just move and then transition into the next piece, to the next piece, to the next piece, to the next piece, to the next piece. And it worked out swimmingly. And this show is really to show the sort of 50 years of the council for Fashion Week. And this is kind of what it looked like in the end, with all the beautiful pieces of work. And we also had to do the iPads and timelines, and everybody was really happy with what we did. And afterwards, we sort of created this sort of video piece. I really do believe in aspects of collaboration. Working with the client, working with enormous groups of designers to get a clear understanding of what the problem is, you define the problem, create particular solutions for it, and then you push on. And a project that sort of really does that well for me is called The View. We had developed for J. Walter Thompson, JWT, the large aid agency in the United States, a data visualization application for them to utilize on a day-to-day basis for their global marketing team. And they only gave us, I think, 5 weeks to develop the prototype, which we did. And then they gave us a little bit more money to develop the larger amount a year later, for within about 5 months. And I'm like, 5 months? Oh, come on, every bloody project I get, can I get a project that actually can be done in like a year and I can actually do a better job? And what we had to do was sort of look at their data and produce a system that could visualize their brand marketing on a global scale, and for all their clients, from HSBC to Diageo, you name it. There's tons of them, and we sort of created this app within that amount of time that could really create comparison structures. You could drag and drop Excel sheets into the system. You can develop new countries over the course of time and tag them within seconds and basically understand what's going on. And they also wanted the obligatory sort of Twitter cloud data viz system to be built into it, and we said yes. They didn't. I don't think they actually have fully realized the the magnitude of what we were actually building. It looks incredibly simple, but it actually is not. I do have video that actually shows what it is. You can also show things on the timeline. What we did is that we thought, well, why close it to the public? Why not open it up to have more people utilize it, or more data sets, as we call them, from the World Bank and UNDP and the World Health Organization. And what we started to do is pulling all those particular pieces of data and upload it to this system and create different comparisons. Of how World Bank works and how HSBC actually deals with banking structures. And that was really intriguing to us. And for them, it wasn't so much like that. But we thought, why can't we start, looking at it from another point of view, of being able to look at something which was more narrative-centric, creates more collective dialogue structures, creates better heightening trends and new channels of markets, and also has better sort of annotations and social media integration. And this is after the 5 months that we had to actually achieve this particular goal. We sort of realized this is a bigger system that we need to develop here. A bit like what John was talking about in regards to the sort of common structure, allowing design and developers to actually build out a bigger data application for everybody to use within the world, and create different comparisons of it, and to create different dialogues. And we're still sort of thinking it up, but these are some of the things that we were thinking about. Can the system actually ask pertinent questions of the data that is being put into it? That it's actually smart. And so we also want people to sort of like draw their own conclusions within it. It's a bit like creating a Wikipedia, but for data visualization. How important that system actually is. So we've started a very small project internally in the office at Pentagram to actually sort of start to generate a larger set, as it were, for this system. And it will be actually for public use. I don't know when it will be ready. I'm a lazy bastard. But it'll be ready sometime soon. And if anybody wants to help out, please let me know. And if any developers are in the house who are interested in that, we have, unfortunately, enough designers. This brings me to my last project, communal complexities. Yes, collaboration is great, but it does have the aspects of design. Die by committee situations. What does one do with that? But as you can see, I've sort of like moved, as a graphic designer, I've moved from books, magazines, posters, or wallpapers, which are digital and become more software orientated. And now I'm sort of going to start talking about sort of industrial design integrated with technology and graphics all together. And this is the latest project that we worked on. Again, another 5-month bloody project, but in a sense, we've had to extend the amount of time with the graphical user interface that we've been developing for this particular client in Savannah, Georgia, for their museum. Jake Barton, if anybody knows, he runs local projects in New York City. He tweeted this, and I didn't find it. My crew found it, and they said, Eddie, look what he said. That's totally wrong. It's like, yeah. So Jake Barton, you're totally bloody wrong, right, mate? Just to let you know, it's not a table that you can fling images like air hockey. Is this what museums need? And I'll explain what the project is in a minute. It is more than that. It is so much more than that. There's more to this table than a 140 character remark. So this particular project was really interesting in us. We were asked initially by the client to develop some system for this particular museum at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design Museum, that was opening last year. And we showed them display systems that we wanted to create, which are interactive, and they were like, yeah, that's all well and true. And then we showed them in the presentation a slide with an X through it. I said, don't go here, it's too early. And they said, we want that. That's the last time I ever do that. It's this particular table. It's a multi-touch table, which is 13 feet long, that we had to develop. But it was it was a pretty tough situation that we were in, because they decided that they wanted this table 3 months in. So we had 2 months to build it and design it, interface everything, program it with only 5 to 6 people. I was sort of working on other things. So we cranked at it, and one of the things about this particular table is that it is specifically portable. It had to be portable. They wanted to use the particular space of the atrium for parties as well as this particular table. So we had to have it mobile, and it needed not to have a computer built into it because it had to be a little bit more lightweight. And so this particular table is actually built, as you can see, it has wood finishing, but we actually built it in the end out of one piece of metal, folded, similar to an Apple system. It's all folded together. We've sort of placed a IR bar on top of the infrared bar, on top of the actual screens that are incredibly wafer thin. For the system. We also sort of developed with the use of Cinder. If anybody's used it, it's really bloody hard program to use in that amount of time. Developed particular frameworks to actually work for it. This is a sort of screensaver mode that the table is supposed to actually go into. The whole aspect of the table, and I'll be quite quick about this, was to be communal. The idea of sharing and showing people, what you found. So in a sense, Jake, you're actually pushing a card across the table to share it with somebody, and then they can read it and they can give it back or they can close it. And so we came up with this sort of analogy of the idea of flipping the card, like like normal cards that you have when you're playing. Not this idea of like a CSI sort of scale up and rotate and do this, and like the normal Microsoft Surface systems. Bollocks to that. We didn't want to do that. Yeah, and we wanted it to be a learning process, not so much a playful process. And even the client right now is fighting us on that. They want it to be more playful. They want it to move around. Hopefully, I'm probably going to get fired for this, but anyway. So the whole point of this was to really learn from the information that you're gathering. So if you get a card, you select the card, you tap it, it rotates, it opens up, and it gives you more content that you can read within the amount of time that you need. And we came up with different structures, but that card thing was really the main crux of it. And we developed sort of like the skin with Scan. We sort of collaborated on that, and we sort of developed this whole approach. And getting back to the idea of one steel sheet, that was quite a masterful piece of engineering. It was built in Brooklyn at Milgo Bufkin, and they deal with like a lot of Robert Indiana artworks, and they are master craftsmen. And we were a bit worried because we had all this equipment in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn, and we were really, shit scared that we had all these boxes of computers and monitors that they were going to nick it. But nobody really, and everybody would walk past and like, what the hell is that thing? As they walked past, and we were quite excited for people to actually, peer in and see it. And so this is the table, the eventual table that was built. We didn't put the lights underneath, they did that, but it does float in a sense. The reason, it's the first sort of plug and play table which is ADA compliant, and anybody in a wheelchair can actually sit there and actually utilize the table. And kids and adults, they have so much fun utilizing it. Another important factor before I leave is that this table is also not used for this interface. You can use any interface for it. It was built like a computer, like a computer screen. So you can just plug and play anything that you want onto it and interact with it. So that was the point of all the design students that are dealing with software at this school to come over to the museum, create their own interface and interactive piece, and then start actually utilizing it for their own sake. I have some video really quickly. Thank you very much. And if you didn't like the presentation, remember that it's a leap year. So even this day is very complex, and this didn't happen.